Today, we're joined by Larissa Esposito, founder of LaRue Events. Larissa is a wedding planner known for producing refined, design-forward celebrations that balance aesthetics with a strong sense of intention. Her work reflects a focus not just on how weddings look, but also how it feels for her clients, their guests, and the team bring it all together. This conversation grew out of an earlier exchange around community in the wedding industry and a shared sense of something feeling off in how vendors are currently showing up and working together. Larissa brings a perspective that challenges some of the quieter norms in the industry, especially around performance comparison and the pressure to create something that looks good online versus something that feels meaningful in the room. Our conversation will focus on vendor community, what it feels, what's feeling fragmented right now, and what might look like to build something more intentional, not as much as like an ideal, but more of like a real shift in how we work together. So, all of that said, Larissa, welcome to Talk of the Aisle.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting conversation. You and I were just talking offline about how it's probably good that Melissa's not with me right now, so we can kind of be more candid and not worry about ruffling feathers in any way. But obviously, everything that you and I have already kind of talked about, and I think we're on the same page, is kind of valuing the same things and kind of
Yeah.
being able to use our perspective of experience in this industry to understand, I think, ultimately what's gonna matter long term.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, to just start off in one or two sentences, how would you describe what you do and what you care about most in your work?
Sure. So for us, we help translate a couple's love story into an experience that feels more authentic to them. For me, the focus is really not on the trends or stage performance. It's about creating the emotional depth and connection and the sense of being together in this celebration and being held in that room, which is kind of a term I use often, is being held in that room. That means the most to us.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. I love I love all the feeling side of what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, being the core in what matters. Um, what what do you think people misunderstand about your role uh, when it comes to actually like the weddings themselves and kind of what you do?
I feel like planners get the you probably get like the same answer. Like we're more than just the pretty details and the linens and the florals on the table. Um, but for me, I take my role seriously in a sense where my role is more about the orchestration and emotional rhythm of the event.
Mm.
I'm there to make sure that, the vendors are performing as they should, that the teams know what they're doing and there's clear communication. Um, and that the couple's experience isn't lost. And I think that's kind of like the core of our conversation that we'll grow into. But
Yeah,
that is kind of what my goal is, to make sure that the logistics and everything is coming together, but at the end of the day, the couple is still in the forefront for everybody.
yeah, I love that. It's like there's the obvious, you help put it together and kind of figure out the more tangibles, but doing that to be able to then give the couple the intangibles.
Yeah.
You know, that's I just made that up. Um,
So
no,
good.
but
Right?
well, I think like that aligns with us too because something that
Yeah.
I harp on all the time, whether we're doing photo or video, is like the experience matters for everyone involved, not just our couples, but their guests and even other vendors that work, and are kind of interacting with our teams. Like
Yeah.
it all matters. So I think, being on the same team is a big part, I think, of the intention that we put into our experiences.
Absolutely. I'm a big team player
Yeah.
too. So it's when we always get like one or two vendors who we haven't worked with or are new to a group, I feel like most vendors see it, especially planners. They're usually the ones that give the most trouble on the wedding day. Um, because the ones that we've worked with, we're all on the same team. We're all going for the same goal, and there's always that
Yeah.
ego or something else that gets thrown into the mix, but I
Yeah.
quietly make sure that we get that shift going early on, and planners can identify that right away. I can know by the
Yeah.
first time I meet a photographer or a videographer or the
Mm,
catering team that's new, I know immediately within, like, the first 10 minutes that, okay, we're gonna need to handhold or give a little bit more support, or how are we
yeah.
gonna make this be what we're expecting it to be for our clients and what they expect it to be too.
Right. So in that case, if you have a new photographer that you're working with, outside of doing, the basic online research of like what is their work, what's their site, telling about them, do you have any preliminary conversations with them kind of leading into the day?
Oh, yeah. Um, we're definitely not the planner who, if a client books a photographer outside of our list or
Mm,
doesn't ask us for advice and they have somebody, that's totally fine. We make it a point, like you said, we're gonna look at their Instagram, make sure that that vibe is what they've been looking for,
mm,
check out their website, and then we'll do an intro email. We'll send an email that we want to set up a call, or a FaceTime, just to get on the same page. This is how we work. This is what the client has said that they're looking for. From a photographer standpoint, are we in
yeah.
line? What help do you need? Do you need a timeline right away? Do you not prepare a timeline?
Mm,
Again, we're all working for the same team. We look at ourselves as like that conductor. So we're trying to make sure that we probably host more calls with vendors than most planners, but we just wanna make sure that the communication's open, we're readily available. If they have questions, don't be afraid to ask. If they need something that's outside of a norm or a question, we're happy to do it.
yeah.
That's what we're here for.
Right. That's great. And that protects the couple.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I definitely, I would say more times than not, new planners that I'm working with are not asking those sorts of questions. And a lot of times what I'm doing is I'm like asking how they like to work. Like what do you expect from your, videographer or photographer? Because every planner is a little bit different. Some are like everything goes through me, or you deal directly with the client, or I'm doing a photo timeline and then I talk to them about their master timeline. And so it's just like, you know, I I don't want to make things harder for the planner, so I'm always trying to be proactive
Right,
if they're not really thinking that far ahead. But I think that also just kind of goes into the experience of having done this so long
right,
to know like the little things matter big on the day of. So you're not there's no kind
right,
of like pending questions or surprises of like, oh, you do this way, like what's
right.
happening right now. Um,
Yeah, and everybody has a different formula for how they operate and
yeah,
work. I mean, we tell our couples, we work in a collaborative setting. We want to get your information, your family's information. We're not militant planners. There are planners out there who are very much by their own book and they do things a certain way, and you have to go through them, and they don't go through communication through Honeybook and like all this stuff. We'll make it as easy as possible. It's not the end of the world, you know?
yeah, yeah,
We're planning a wedding, and what the couple doesn't know, we know, and that's why they're coming to us. So
yeah,
we like to keep that environment in the forefront of, it's a collaborative experience between the couple and us as well as the vendors. This isn't our show,
right,
we're just the planners. We're here to make sure that everybody shines at the end of the day.
yeah,
And if you're not shining, how can I give you a little bit more support to shine better? Like, we're not
yeah,
those people. We're never going to throw anybody under the bus
yeah,
unless you really do something you're not supposed to. And then, yeah, we'll come for you. Trust
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I love that. I mean, that like I feel like you're describing hospitality, ultimately, and
Yeah.
it's not just on the client side, it's also on the vendor side. And I appreciate that. I think that you can run into issues with egos kind of bleeding in at times, depending on the scenario. So I think that's where having someone like you and the way you guys operate to kind of keep everyone focused on what
Right.
matters, which is the couple and the day
Yeah.
of experience, not, am I going to be able to get enough social media content from this wedding to be able to, like that end, which, we'll kind of push that seed down further in our conversation. But so to kind of in line with all of this, what's something that you believe about weddings or the wedding industry that more people would understand if they experience what you do firsthand?
That's a good question. I feel like they would know that there's one end goal. No matter what,
Mm,
everybody is there for the couple. Your family is there for the love and to see you get married. Your vendors are there for the same thing. As much as it is for them to capture those moments, they really just want to be present in that moment. I always say my favorite part of a wedding day is when, you know, the bride walks into the room for the first time, whether it's her seeing her parents or the first look or the ceremony. There is a pause and an awe and a gasp that happens that
mm,
you can never repeat, and everybody is there for that moment. The videographer is there to capture it, the minister's there, the music, it all sets a tone, and people seem to kind of miss that sometimes. It becomes, and we've talked about it, like, everything can become more performative, and we need to get back to it being real,
yeah,
personally. That's how I feel. It needs to go back to
yeah,
what it was about, flipping through the pages of Martha Stewart magazine. I miss those days.
yeah, yeah. What's a physical book? I have never really thought about it that way, the way you put it in terms of like, whether it's the first look or walking to the ceremony space or the reception space. Each part of the experience has its own first
Mhm.
response, which is real and or should be. And, I think that's just a really beautiful way to put it. And I think also ties into wanting to, at least maybe for the clients that you're serving, that hopefully are aligned with you and your values, that you care about that kind of authenticity of that experience
Yeah.
versus like I want to do a room reveal and have this overly dramatic, response, or for the first look, it needs to be what is picture worthy or Instagrammable versus like authentic to the couple, like most of our first looks we experience, there isn't a really huge kind of grand thing that happens. It's always this kind of like subtle, beautiful, like realization and then this connection. And it's just, you know, it is usually what it's supposed to be for the couple. We definitely have some characters that we get to work with who are a lot more over the top and have those reactions, and that's great. But I don't think that's the standard, or the typical.
Yeah. I mean, we always say to our couples who wanna do a first look, they're like, "Oh, we'll do them before photos, everybody can come." I'm like, "Let's cut that down to you, the photographer, videographer, and each other. Don't have bridesmaids,
Mm,
parents, and everybody watching because it does still become performative. What if I don't smile? What if I don't cry?"
mm,
My mom said she cried when she saw my dad, and what if I don't? And I laugh. I mean, we have couples who do a first look, and it's nervous, and they just laugh at each other, and it's not this, like,
yeah,
grandiose emotional moment, um but it's still a moment that's true to themselves, so own it, but don't have it's just sometimes like the noise. That's what I always
yeah,
say, like, don't have too much noise. Make it be intimate and what you guys want, because
yeah,
the noise comes through and then you get awkward. You see it through the film
yeah.
that
You
it's,
can't.
like, forced. It's
Yeah,
not.
for photo, it's easier to hide. For video, it's not.
Yeah, yeah, video again, I don't know
Yeah,
how people do the video thing. I
which you.
tried. I started out as a wedding photographer, I should say
Oh, I
that
didn't.
too.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did wedding photography for a very well-known, photographer in New Jersey. That's how I started in the industry, and I loved it. But I was better at timelines and talking to couples and getting them to upgrade their package, and he was like, "You need to be a planner."
Yeah,
Uh, and not that I'm, like, super old, but back then, the only planner in the area in New Jersey, because I grew up in Bergen County, was, like, Marcy Bloom in New York City or Mindy
mm,
Weiss, and I was like, "I don't wanna go into the city and do this." And then
mm,
my parents moved to Pennsylvania, and I got an internship as a planner, and it's just blossomed, and I love it.
yeah,
I take photography very seriously too, so
yeah. That's awesome. That's good to know. That's also very like you just have a completely different perspective than most planners. Like you've
yeah,
been in the shoes, and I think photographers, even more so than video, are in a really unique position to kind of have a certain kind of access to the couple and their
mm,
experience that no one else gets.
yeah, and I would agree. I usually tell my couples once they book me, like, how we would position it is we would get your date, your information. We wanna know what style you like of photography, what
Mhm.
moves you. Is it photojournalistic? Is it more candid? Um, Knowing their budget and their personality. I'm not gonna send them somebody who might be a little bit more stuffy. I'm not gonna send them somebody who's gonna be too loose. So we match them. We'll reach out to the photographers, get their availability, the quote, and then we send them to the
Mm.
couple, and it's up to them to host the call. That's what we always say. You host the call because at the end of the day, you're spending so much time planning this event with us, but on your wedding day, you're spending your day with them. So you have to like them and you have to have this connection because I've seen so many couples pick a photographer, and I've had brides been like, "I don't wanna deal with him later." Like, I don't like, he wasn't good, he was rough, he isn't posing me
Mhm.
correctly, or I didn't like the way he made this comment about my mom. It might have been funny to him, but, like, there's just hits or misses.
Mhm.
Um, so we really wanna make sure we get that good, and for the most part, we've been very successful since we kind of pivoted this change in how we do things. Um with getting clients to choose, like, the right vendor for them at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And planners could be another conversation for another day because I feel like we're in a market where I planned my wedding. It was so fun. Now I'm a planner, and it's like,
Yeah.
girl,
Yeah.
that
It
could be
can.
another
Yeah. It,
podcast.
it it can work for some, and it has, right? But it's not. It's like the wedding industry just has this
We have
allure.
no regulation or standard, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Listen, I love a hustle. I did a hustle. I side projected. I worked in corporate pharma and
Mm.
did weddings. But I had a little bit more background working in, like, food and beverage and hotels and hospitalities, knowing how to do floor plans from that perspective, so, like, there's a combination of things, but
Yeah.
we've had people
Yeah.
and then those are the people who are like venues are like, "We're not working with planners anymore because 'cause it's been a bad day."
That's yeah, that's another conversation in of itself too.
Right?
The venues who have this stranglehold on their couples and are making so many decisions for them, and and to generalize, because I don't want to call any names, like there's venues that will only let them use their in-house vendors so that they benefit financially regardless
Oh,
of
it's
the
monopoly.
right,
Yeah.
regardless of the quality. Um,
No,
and some venues are getting worse and doubling down, and then there's the pay to play, like all this crazy
yeah,
stuff that's not it's not mostly beneficial for the couples, it's what's best for business and their bottom
yeah,
line. But let me
yeah,
quickly take
totally
or
different conversation.
I need to not go down so many roads today. Um,
Right?
excuse me. Our so I think like the core of our conversation today is about intentional community.
Yep.
So I want to pivot to that side more. Um, and in our conversations, you mentioned the idea that if we built community with intention, weddings would feel different. What did you mean by that in terms of like practical terms?
So for me, I think it's more candid conversations like we're having, celebrating wins without comparison, like, that's huge for me, and I don't feel like we do that enough in our industry. Um, Admitting your challenges and not having fear about it. Like, I'm an open book. There are things that scare the hell out of me, but I don't have a problem talking about it or
Mm.
being the person to raise my hand in a group setting or like a WIPA event and asking those hard questions because some people might be thinking it, but they might be scared to ask.
Yeah.
And for me, prioritizing alignment over your ego at the end of the day. And ego has no place in this industry, and there's a lot of people who have ego.
That's what leads the industry, I feel like.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. It is crazy. And I mean, we've worked with great photographers, great designers, I mean, who have egos and the budgets and personalities to match, and that's fine.
Mm.
But they treat people still really well, and there are people and I won't say, like, within our region, who have an ego, who don't treat people well, and who do more harm than good for our industry behind the scenes for us, the vendor community.
Yeah.
But the clients don't see that, and that seems to be becoming more prevalent to me when I talk to people. "Oh, I had this experience or that experience with this person." I'm like, "Why? Like, really? Like, why can't we do this?" And I think, again, making that space for everybody for authenticity, like, getting down back to why are we doing what we're doing and who are we doing it for? I don't take weddings to do it for myself. I take it because there's a connection between me and the couple, and I want to be present in their day, and I want to make their day exactly what they wanted and more, and
Mm,
not there to boost my portfolio. And maybe that's bad for my business on how I look at it, but, you know, I'm not trying to get the client who sends me the highest budget at the end of the day, or, "Oh, you don't have $150,000 for florals? Oh, pack sand." It's not how I operate. It's
yeah.
your day. You have to prioritize what's important to you. You have $25,000 for florals? We'll make it intentional, and we'll make those moments speak for themselves versus, showing them the door. And we get a lot of inquiries from people who have already interviewed maybe 3 or 4 other planners, and we hear some interesting things sometimes, and I'm just like, "Really?
Yeah.
Wouldn't have expected that," but it's out there.
It's yeah, there's a huge difference between what people are talking about publicly and privately.
Yeah.
And I just like you said, there needs to be space for vulnerability and authenticity. And most of the networking groups, to generalize, they're not inviting that. Like their copy that they share invites it, and their social media looks all about it, but when you're in the room, it's not there. And I think I've been in a really unique position with my proximity to certain things to have people come to me and seek me out to share things that um, kind of speaks to that misalignment. And that's why, us starting our wedding community gather
Mhm.
has been such an exciting project because it's built only around those ideas of
Right.
transparency, authenticity, vulnerability, being able to feel comfortable saying that things are difficult or you're struggling, excuse me, or struggling with something specific, and not being afraid of being judged. And I think there is this strange thing that's happened where we all need to show up in the room as if everyone's life is absolutely perfect. Every calendar is booked, everything across the board when we're all figuring it out all the time. Like
Yeah.
transparently, like things are it's a tough business. It's seasonal, it's ever changing. The bar to entry, there is no bar to entry anymore, right? So it's like in the past 5 years, I feel like the amount of vendors have doubled in our area. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, so I think like I love the idea of trying to lead with these values to try to invite that, which hopefully will
Right.
in turn make a change in our
Yeah.
local community. Um, and do you think that vendors are like we're actively shaping the culture, or do you think that we are responding to what couples in the markets are asking for?
I think it's a shift in both. I think there are certain vendors who are shaping the industry and getting the right clients, but then I think there are people, and I don't like to use the word hobbyist because I feel like it's offensive, but there are people who enter in our industry who were hobbyists at first, and they're trying to shape themselves to a couple. They're trying to get that visual presence in that whole, the social media realm, and their Instagram looks flawless.
Mm,
Um, we worked with a wonderful, talented photographer last year. Amazing, shoots Vogue, but her back end business, I wouldn't recommend her based on how my clients had their experience and how my experience went with her. Um, and that's tough because there is talent there, but it's just too new for her, and she didn't think of it more so from a, "What do I wanna do out of this business?" She was like, "I've did 62 weddings last year." "Why? Why?" That's
Wild.
my biggest thing. I mean, we have an assistant who's a planner in the area, and she's amazing. I love her to death. I support her 100%. But she did the same thing. She's like, "Oh, last year I did 52 weddings." Why? I was like, "Your new favorite word in 2026 needs to be no." And she was like, "What?" I was like, "No, seriously, you need to start saying no." There's over 10,000 weddings in Philadelphia a year. I want 1% of them. I don't want more than that. I want 1% of quality leads and
Mm,
quality clients that are going to not make me crazy at the end of the day. I don't need that in my life, and I think that's where we've shifted our priorities and our goals and how we source our vendors and talk to our clients because we want it to be an easy, seamless process. It shouldn't be hard. It shouldn't be difficult. Venues make it harder, obviously, especially in our area with, their new and exciting new things they roll out, or we're no longer doing this for ceremony. And I'm like, why would you book a cultural client when you're no longer having fire allowed? Like,
yeah.
are you going to give them their money back? Oh no. Why would we do that? Um, but I think it's kind of that they don't know what they want. They just want it all because they need it for their visuals. They need it
Yeah.
to seem like they're booked all the time.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't ever say we're fully booked for a year. We're not. We might get a client that's the perfect client. We just did. We got an amazing couple, June 6th. We just booked them last week.
Damn.
It's gonna
Yeah.
be an amazing event. They're renting out Zahav. It's gonna be really cool and different. They've been looking for a planner for 6 months and haven't been able to connect with anybody.
Wow.
And there are a lot of people who were like, "We're booked, we're booked." We're not booked. We're not fully booked. You
Yeah.
never know what comes around.
Yeah. I think
It's
we,
just
yeah, fairly similar to us in that Melissa and I have our numbers every year, but if the right couple comes around, we will absolutely
right,
change our numbers for
right,
them.
right,
Because we're at the point in our career where our experience matters too, just as
right.
much. Like I love when we are connected with a couple and we're aligned, and it makes the work not work at all.
Yeah,
It's just a
definitely.
joy. It's a
Yeah,
joy to be around them, and just Melissa and I can focus purely on the experience, and everything else takes care of itself.
yeah. And there's few vendors who take that approach, that they want to get to know the couple,
Yeah.
um, and, like, host a call. We've met with photographers and video, and we're like, "Our couple would really like to interview you," and they're like, "Interview us?" And I'm like, "Mm, yeah, you're a big part of their day." They wanna make sure that like I said earlier, they gotta vibe with you, they have to be with you. You're with them for if you're not in the bathroom with them, that's the only time you're not with that couple that day. I
Yeah.
mean, for real.
Yeah.
Or eating, and do you get to eat on a wedding day? Because I don't.
We've been pretty
I got an
lucky.
Uncrustable that I stick in my packages, like,
Mm,
I need my Uncrustables for the end of the day, but I don't get to sit down and, have the vendor meal,
yeah.
because by the time I make sure you guys get fed, the couple's up, and then they need something, or mom and dad need something, or there's a dress rip, so we're getting our meals to go and eating it at the car at the end of the night or going through Taco Bell, but
Yeah. And
all in a
and
day's work.
and you guys have the longest day of
Yeah.
everybody. Like
Mhm.
I don't like we always come prepared to not have a vendor meal, so we'll have snacks to keep us because the venue could have every intention in making it happen, but things happen and we might have a minute to take two bites and then we got to go. Um,
Yeah.
so I respect you for that. Um, I get shaky after a point, so I'm like, I need to be able to handle my camera. Uh,
Right?
so in terms of like vendor alignment, can you share a moment where vendor alignment created a noticeably better experience for a couple?
Yeah, I think let's see. For the most part, I feel like when vendors are all aligned,
Mm,
the day runs completely different. Your day doesn't feel like you're on a timeline. It's running organically and it is as it should be. And couples are seeing it because they don't feel rushed through the day. They feel like they're going through the motions, but it's not, a minute by minute ticker like a timeline is for people. And again, the vendor team, they all just we're like a well-oiled machine at the end of the day. When it's not there, you notice,
Mm.
where's this person? Where's that person? Why is the photographer missing? Batteries lately, last year, do you know how many photographers asked me for batteries?
Really? That's because they'd be using their flashes so much during the day.
And I'm like, I don't carry I carry like Duracell batteries. They're gonna die in an hour and a half. Trust me. Like I'm not carrying good batteries for you to
Mm.
manage your things. Coming prepared is something that I feel like a lot of vendors sometimes come ill prepared for an event. Weather, all those things. I
Mm.
mean, we're planners. A, B, and C I have, I have umbrellas in my car always. There's always 6 clear umbrellas in my car. Even if my daughter takes one to school, she has to return it. Um, because you never know. It could be a light shower. It could say it was never going to rain and it rained.
Yeah.
But I feel like when we're all working for the same goal, we feel it. When there's an ego or a shift, it's not the same experience at the end of the day. For ourselves, for the rest of the vendor team, and the couple feels it and their family feels it regardless of what they might be smiling. The only person getting emails post event is the planner and the person who didn't do their job.
Right.
Because they're not emailing, they might email their photographer after you send your sneak peek, but I get the emails right after the event, the good, bad, and ugly, and then have to kind of figure out what those next steps are
Yeah.
with the good, bad, and ugly. But
Yeah.
nobody else is really getting those unless you didn't align with what we were supposed to do that day.
Yeah. I will say there is a lot of space for grace in that a lot of couples don't have any expectations beyond what they're being told and what they see. So they don't, like, I think couples, I've seen them have bad experiences with certain vendors, but they don't know it was a bad experience. And
100%.
and then like me and Melissa are like, can you believe, like, on the way home from weddings, it's always like, let's talk about the day, and like, and we're just like, it could be something small, and I think we're sensitive about it all too, right? Like I romanticize what we do, I think in the best way, where I really do care about every vendor and everyone's experience, and I just want the best for our couples, which is why I love, especially doing photo, is because we have a big impact on that day because we're there so much in the action. Um, but like on the flip side of all this, is there a moment that sticks out where there was like a big misalignment or ego that impacted a day?
I feel like there is, but I really don't think I'm able to talk about the exact one.
Okay. Okay. Can you generalize?
Yeah, so we can generalize a little bit, but we might have to not use it. We did an event and we supported another planner for an event. And when we met the couple, I could tell you that I knew it was doomed from the start. Um, Nothing was done. Timelines seemed very wonky. There was a lot of gatekeeping of information
Mm.
that wasn't um given out to anybody until like I started asking questions. uh on the wedding day, said person wasn't even on site. Um wasn't even there for vendor load in. There was misalignments. We don't know as the support person what this visual looks like besides what you sent us,
Mm.
2 or 3 days before that. But what happens when we have to pivot or, this didn't fit in this area? We can't be those decision makers. Excuse me.
Mm.
But that showed throughout everything. Like when we met the couple, they didn't want to engage with this person. They were like, we're not comfortable. We're unhappy.
Wow.
Keep them away from me. I had to play customer service the whole weekend. Um, and, make sure the client wasn't crossing paths, and it wasn't hard to cross paths because that person wasn't even there. Um, but what broke my heart the most was it's twofold. One, this person was a really good friend of mine. I worked with them several times, traveled the globe with them, and disposed of me like I was nothing, and still is blocking me on social media and saying things behind my back. And I have a thick skin. I'm from New Jersey, and I'm always like, "Listen, I've been called worse by better, so it doesn't mean anything to me at the end of the day."
Yeah.
But this couple invested thousands of dollars, close to 1,000,000, maybe even more than that, for a very shitty experience.
Mhm.
Like, there's no way to go around it. I would close up my doors if it was me as a planner and never take a wedding again. It was that
Yeah.
inconsistent. And then you put the weight on your vendor team. Now they have to shine. You failed at your job or failed at your communication and failed at your follow through, and now they have to step it up just a little bit more to kind of outshine you, so they're not a target, because that's
Mhm.
what's going to come. You've created a ripple effect. Everybody sees that, oh, this isn't in line, then what does my florals look like? Now they're paying more attention where they probably might not have. And that was kind of the sad part about it, because again, we've done so many weddings and traveled with them.
Yeah.
It wasn't that person, and who was that person that we decided we were gonna help, because I would have never expected it to go the way that it did
Yeah.
in any way, shape, or form, and it was a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
Like, it was bad. I left. I quit. I've never quit a wedding in my life. I quit. I didn't even go to the reception.
Wow.
I was like, "She needs to fall on a sword. I can't
Yeah.
keep cleaning it up." It's exhausting.
Yeah.
I was working till, like, 2 in the morning, fixing timelines. For me, only because I cared about the couple, and unbeknownst to her, I knew the bride. The bride was one of my past bride's best sister's best friend. So, like, there's
Wow.
this weird 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon with me, and they get so excited that Larissa's gonna be there. I'm getting text messages from the sister, "Oh, you're planning so and so's wedding. We're so excited to see you. It's gonna be beautiful." And I'm like, "I'm just the assistant. I'm not the planner," like, trying to make myself
Yeah.
definitely defined.
Mhm.
Um, and it just crumbled
Yeah.
from the onset of the event, load in. It just never got better.
Yeah.
Post event, it's still not better. I still never got paid. A whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just that's
There's I that's a
yeah.
an extreme example. Um, and I'm sure you're leaving a lot out as well. Um, even on like a smaller scale though, like I've worked with certain vendors, planners who are considered, at the top, and on the outside they're presenting as this wedding was absolutely amazing, but behind the scenes I'm like, you're you don't have your shit together basically. And it's like, and I think that's for me the scary part about the way that our industry seems to operate and how social media is included in that issue is it's so hard for couples to know the truth. Even if they're living it, they don't necessarily know. And this, one wedding would be, I guess, categorized as luxury. And I'm just like, this is one of the worst run weddings I've seen in a while. I'm like, and this is not that hard. I'm like, you got everything's, there's one location. Like,
Right.
there's nothing really unique about this flow. And you have a team of 5 people with you today, or whatever it was. There was you know, a handful. And I'm like, why does it seem that things just keep going wrong? I don't, yeah,
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of it for me, A lot of it comes down to when you have a wedding planner and those things are going wrong where, like, you notice it, it is the planner at the end of the day.
Mm.
Like, a day should be running smoothly if you have all your ducks in a row. If you are making sure that you're considering X, Y, and Z. If you had the videographer's timeline and you're communicating to understand, that they need 45 minutes. Okay, but if that 45 minutes runs late for, first look, how are we pivoting? Are you going to do those portraits post ceremony now? Cuz there are
Yeah.
so many things, but I and maybe I'm the bad planner, but I'll take the blame and say, sometimes it falls on the planner.
Yeah.
Uh, because you've worked events where there's no planner, the venue takes over, they're managing it from their perspective and it's fine,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Once you get to the reception. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's fine, but why does it have to be? And sometimes excuse me. I think sometimes planners overthink and make things more complicated than they need to be.
Mm.
And I will gladly say that because we've assisted with other planning companies. My staff has went out with other planning companies and they've been like, "Oh." And I'm like, sometimes I'm like, "I don't want to hear it. Just keep it to
Yeah.
yourself."
Yeah.
Because it's strange to hear. Or they're like, "We were questioning why they did the timeline like this because like that didn't make sense." And then at the end of the day, they still followed like what we would have suggested, but everybody was confused because it was in print this way. I'm like, again, not my monkey, not my circus. And
Yeah.
that's like the tone my staff has to take when they're like going somewhere else. I'm like, just not your monkey, not your circus. Just follow directions, be complicit,
Mm.
follow in line. Like it is what it is. But I think I think planners need to take a lot more responsibility too and ownership of when things go wrong,
Yeah.
why? And self-reflect on it because sometimes it is our fault.
Yeah.
Sometimes we might have made an error or something else, and we just need to figure out how to manage it, but some planners are very quick to point a finger at someone else very
Yes.
quickly
Yeah.
and deflect that completely.
Yeah. I
Um,
yeah. Mm. I've
yeah,
had a planner more or less stop referring us for video because the client, they were just one of those couples that are just they don't have like a chemistry and they're not very comfortable together.
yeah,
PDA is not something that they're good for demonstrating, and a couple other things that would be too specific to mention to give it away. But like their film, I'm like, we deliver what was real. I'm like, this is them, you know?
right.
And there was parts that I'm like, there's just literally nothing I can do. Like I can only work with what I have here. And I can't change the way someone looks or the way someone sounds or whether or not they are emotional.
Mhm.
It's like when we're dealing on the photo side, when we'll get an email from a mother of a bride or someone, and they're like, "Could you Photoshop all of my pictures to make me look skinnier or taller,
Not
or
how
change the
Photoshop
color of my
works.
dress, or like,
Excuse me.
you know?" And luckily,
Yeah,
Melissa is really talented at communicating to people in those situations, like the value of who they are and kind of acceptance, like
right.
self-acceptance, which Melissa has kind of turned into a superpower that she takes in other parts of her life. But um, yeah, it's just so interesting. Like our industry is nuts. Like I love it. It's crazy. There's just and you could do so much to plan the perfect wedding, but you're still bringing humans together, and there's too many
Right.
variables. And I think to your point about like taking responsibility and all that, like if you are communicating to your couples in an honest way before the day, and whether it's even excuse me, like in the interview process, like the way that I try to communicate with potential couples is like being open about like we're good at what we do and we have the experience and the portfolio to back it up, but like things still happen, but we
Yeah.
always take action in a way that's best for you. and
Yeah.
we genuinely care about what we're doing for you and the experience you have. And I
Yeah.
think when things do go wrong in those rare instances, our couples have always been so gracious about it.
Yeah, and I mean, we kinda are on, like, the same thing. We tell our couples, we can plan for everything, but at the end of the day, something is going to go wrong. I would be lying if I said, I've worked a wedding where everything went right.
Yeah.
Something goes wrong. Someone's missing something. Something rips, something breaks.
Hmm.
My job is for you as the couple that you never notice it. Or if you do notice it, you already see that there's action being taken to figure it out, fix it, change things, do whatever. Or we're talking about it in our post call, and you might have never even realized X, Y, and Z happened, you know?
Yeah.
That's what we strive for is that they never notice, but sometimes, accidents happen and they do notice. But I think like you said, couples who you share that with in the beginning do have more grace than the couple who weren't told X, Y, and Z or were promised the world and they're getting a less than stellar, experience, and then they're
Mhm.
like, "What do I do?"
Yeah.
I had the couple who on our vendor misalignment, my example, they called me after, "What do I do?"
Mm.
"I'm sorry, I can't tell you what to do." Do I think what happened was right? No. Was it normal? No. Was it the experience that I had more than once because she raved about me working with her thousands of times, traveling the globe? Nope.
Mm.
But I can't advise you. I
Yeah.
can't do that. You need to, like, self-reflect, and what do you think you need to do? But I can't tell you how to do those things. Everybody knew.
Right.
So,
It
like
so kind of on that subject to pivot really quickly, how do you feel about redemption and, and second and third chances? Like if a vendor, because I've seen a vendor on the photo side screw a couple, and the planners were really upset about it and everything, and that everyone just kind of like treated the client like, oh, whatever, this is normal. Like, we'll just give you this photographer instead, and like whatever, because this photographer chose a higher paying couple because they knew they could make more money after they signed a contract, which is another tangent we can go down. But like people grow and they change and they make mistakes, especially like the younger generation that is in the industry right now. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Because it's hairy in general because these are people's once in a lifetime days, right?
right.
So like how would you like what is
Don't
your
get a
opinion? Hmm?
you don't get to do that redo at the end of the day.
Mm.
Um, Accidents happen. Everybody deserves a second chance. However, when there's consistency in what you're doing
Mm.
repeatedly and the lack of accountability and ownership, I don't think you deserve to stay in the industry and to be a thought leader or someone who people inspire to be. I don't think you should be taking on assistants and grooming them to what you're doing when you're not doing any justice for
Yeah.
the industry. Essentially, you're doing us a huge disservice.
Yeah.
I think there's a fine line. Wedding days happen, accidents happen. If your next event is of that and you learn from it, absolutely. But there are certain vendors that act the same way, do the same thing. Maybe they'll take a hiatus on their attitude or, the problem that there was. But at the end of the day, a duck is a duck. Like, I mean, it's true. A duck is a duck, and if it quacks, it's a duck. It's not going to say moo. There are certain things, and that's where we draw the line on our relationships and our boundaries, just as much as it is for you to have personal boundaries. We have boundaries in our business. Like,
Mm.
we're not going to put ourselves in a position to work with another vendor who treated us the way that we were treated. Um, I would never want that for my staff. I would never want that for new people coming into the industry. But there's a lure. to, oh, they have a pretty Instagram. Oh, they're looking for assistance. Oh, this could be my foot in the door, when you're just a body. Like, you're not learning anything. You're just there, and it's not educational. You're
Yeah.
not being respected. That's a disservice.
Yeah.
So don't do it. Like,
Yeah.
I it's hard. But I mean, everybody deserves a second chance. I don't think they deserve a third or fourth or fifth chance at
Yeah.
things.
Yeah. There's a point where at least you as a planner who have more control in your client's experience to be able to be like, you're not going to know about these vendors because I'm protecting you.
Right.
And that's why a lot of planners have a list because it's like you have had the experience and you know they're good and you probably have a pretty eclectic
Yeah.
vendor list too to be able to cater to your couple's needs. What are your thoughts on planners who are like have a very narrow definition on what a good wedding is and have kind of narrowed the scope of their vendor offerings to such a point where it's like they're all the same
Just a
versus
different color palette and different couples standing in front of it.
yeah, it's like yeah. Go ahead.
I think I think there's range with couples in general. Like, you shouldn't do that. But there are planners who do that because it's their bread and butter. They get the
Mm,
same couple that like the same style, and it's easy. And sometimes it is just a copy and paste. Oh, we know that they're getting married at, Villanova at 12 o'clock because it's the only time they will do the ceremony, and then they're going to blah, blah, blah at the country club. Go ahead.
yeah,
I mean, in my mind, it's a very Southern way of doing things because if you have friends who are in the South or planners who are in the South, they are doing the same wedding every weekend because the style doesn't change. They have this very low country aesthetic of blues, whites, and pastels, and they don't really estrange from that at the end of the
mm,
day. They're all copy, rinse, repeat, and that's okay.
mm,
I never want my portfolio to be reflective of like a standard wedding. I want to show range, I want to show that we can be creative, that we can show, diversity and culture, which is really big for us as a team, but not every planner can handle that.
yeah,
Sometimes going outside of that box is scary
yeah,
because they've only done so much. Um, I see a lot of planners who kind of have that aesthetic. Sometimes if they have been a planner who planned their own wedding, they're taking on clients who have the same kind of aesthetic, and they're just carrying that through. Um, a planner who maybe worked at a venue who did the same wash, rinse, repeat kind of style, then they kinda develop that. Um, I don't think at the end of the day there's anything wrong with it. I think there's a
yeah,
planner for everybody. If that's what you want, then that's what you want, but I if it was me, I would want a planner that has a little bit more diversity and change and range of design
yeah,
that could be a little bit more adaptable,
yeah.
because
I,
nothing
I
ever can.
well, I think of it as just like creativity in general because I think there's a million ways to put a wedding together and design it.
Yeah,
But like that's why I love the diversity in our work whenever we can get it.
right.
You know, and seeing that versus like I think there are some vendors that are like I know my avatar, I know my couple, I know what they like, I know where they shop, I all these things, which is great and I think important to have a niche within your vendor category, but at the
Yeah,
same time, and maybe it's because of how we work, I think there should be a collaborative thing, and I think couples need to know that they have choice and they can think outside of the box and like if and that's the funny thing for me about like the whole luxury trend right now is like there's no difference between any of them. Like I don't feel like it's not exciting for me. Like and if I've seen one serpentine wedding or table, I've seen them all, right? Like and it's cool and it's different, maybe not always makes the most sense depending on variable factor different variables, but like I think that's why I love this work is that we can really try to encourage our couples to like filter what their wedding experience is like through their personalities and what they care about
Mhm.
versus like this is the current, for photography, the current trend is direct flash whenever you can. And if you could make things a little blurry or diagonal in your composition, then you're golden, and it has its place. And, it is what it is, but it doesn't mean that you have to accept it because that's what you're seeing.
Right.
Like we tend to lead with questions and understanding like how you want to feel, what do you care about,
Right.
and then reverse engineering to get there.
Yeah, invoke the emotion behind it. What's going to lead to those moments versus and thinking like that, you do have those copy and paste weddings where it doesn't feel like
Yeah.
it's being held in that room. Like I said earlier, you're not having that emotion. It's just the same event a different day. I mean, there's venues we don't even work at. An inquiry comes through,
Mm.
no, we won't work at their venues
Yeah.
because they don't allow creativity. They don't allow change. And if they do, we're fighting and then we look like we're difficult when it's really what the couple wants.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part about our job as planners is sometimes we come in when they already have a venue and we know what we're getting into. Or we now know their vision and they picked their venue and it's not aligned with what they want. And we know we're not going to get there because they don't allow those things.
Yeah.
Um, and that's hard. Or we have couples who, you know, don't have an idea. And then those are the ones that are a little bit harder for us because we can pitch them, 7 or 8 ideas. And if they don't like any of them, then we're like, well, where do you go from here? You
Yeah.
didn't like the tent, you didn't like the lake, you didn't like the mansion. Well, what are you looking for? But they don't give you anything. And then it's like you said, where do you shop? What do you like? Trying to get more emotion and more information to try to develop something. Um, but it's hard. And the word luxury is also something that we find ourselves trying to steer away from because everybody in this industry right now is a luxury.
Yeah. It's
This or
lost its
that.
meaning, I think, for the most part.
Yeah.
And do you know Amanda Briggs? We interviewed her recently. We actually just started sharing her stuff, but she was pointing out that a wedding is a luxury in and of itself. And
100%.
I think that's what we need to come back to. And it's just it's just unnecessary. That's why I call it a trend, because like that is gonna die at some point, and I think it's clouding what luxury really means,
Right.
because it's not about
It
optics
means
only.
something different to everybody at the end of the
That,
day. Luxury is
that's fair.
different, you know, you can have a $75,000 wedding and that's your luxury because you think that's luxury. Is that luxury to me? No.
Yeah.
Is that luxury to the next planner? No.
Mm,
Um, but I think there's a different, it's everybody gets married, everybody has their own vision, everybody has their own budget. And I've learned that, we've done Harry Potter weddings, we've done a lot of different things. We've seen a lot, we've done a lot, and we love it. We love love, but weddings are a luxury. You can go to the courthouse and get married and have dinner at Chicala, and it's a beautiful day,
hmm
and that's your wedding. I got married in my husband's conference room because I got pregnant before we were supposed to get married, and then we postponed, and then it was COVID. So I've
mm,
never had this big wedding that most people think, and then when they ask, like, "Oh, what did you do for your wedding?" I'm like, "I wore white shorts because that was the only thing I could fit into." Like, and it
yeah.
was in a lumberyard conference room. Like, it wasn't pretty. Another manager came down, we found out he was an ordained minister.
Nice.
Um, and it was great, but we had the day planned and, was it luxury to us? No, it was probably a little bit more in, like, that mid-range, but that was in 2019. Luxury, I don't feel like hit the peak of regurgitation until after COVID. I feel like everybody just
Mm,
started saying they were luxury this and that,
yeah.
but
I
they are weddings are a luxury. You don't have to have a wedding,
Right. Yeah. And yeah. And, and,
and they're
and
expensive.
what's that?
They're expensive.
Yeah. I I if we were getting married and I could afford a more expensive wedding, I would not afford a more expensive wedding. like Melissa and I, we did a 10-year vow renewal, and we and that was after 10 years of shooting. So we've been to hundreds of weddings, and we've
Right.
distilled what matters and makes the most sense for us.
Yeah.
And then we had an intimate, like 27 person Italian villa wedding, and
Yeah.
just a very different wedding, which was ultimately cheaper even after flying our vendors over and everything than a standard Philadelphia wedding.
Yeah.
And it wasn't flashy, and it was just like a very grounded experience. Um, so there's a million
But
ways to
that
go.
yeah, but that's what weddings should be. And that's where like I feel like things are performative and things
Yeah.
are more bigger than they what should be when it's about you getting married, sharing your life with the person you want to spend the rest of your life with.
Mm,
Um, our ceremonies, and I mean, you can attest to this, you've been in the business. Our ceremonies went from being 30 minutes to 10
yeah.
minutes because they just want to. That's usually like my first red flag when they're like, yeah, so our ceremonies only be like 15 minutes because we really want to go party. Not my client. I'm sorry. That's
Yeah.
I want somebody who's going to be intentional with what they want to say to their fiance and
Yeah.
their future husband and wife, you know? Uh, we're kind of in the same boat. We're going to do a vow renewal and, we've had time to think about it and we're going to do the same thing. We want to take like 30 people to Costa Rica and be intentional about my vendor selections and who do I want to, stand by our side that day and capture this moment for us versus just hiring a regular old photographer. No, I want to make sure that we have great frienders, we're in the industry, you know that.
Yep. Yep.
Anybody would be happy to take a trip to Costa Rica and shoot with us, like, we know that, but who do I wanna share that day with, you
Yeah.
know? Who do I want to be sitting at the table because they're not gonna be sitting at a vendor table and they're not gonna be sitting at, in a back room or a hut in Costa Rica. They're gonna be sitting at my table with me and my
Yeah.
family to eat that day, and who is that person that shares that with me and who's gonna capture those things with me?
Yeah.
Um the authenticity behind wedding days, I don't wanna say it's lost, but it's slowly
Clouded.
slipping through the yeah, it's
It's
clouded.
partly cloudy at the moment.
Where is it? I
Yeah.
just want it
Well,
back.
so then, if the market is clearly rewarding aesthetics and shareable moments, is it realistic or even wise to push against that from like a business standpoint?
I think so because I feel like couples are seeing it,
Mm,
and couples are hearing it. I mean, I'm in Facebook groups and people are picking photographers who aesthetically looked great, and they're having shitty experiences,
yeah.
shitty results. Oh, the photography didn't look like what their Instagram looked like, you know? I think they're getting more grounded, and I think or at least we see it. I
Mm,
think that's where it is, but we also have a shift in what we did. I don't wanna say we're no longer taking Western couples, but, like, most of our clients are interreligious, they're interfaith, they're interracial, and there's things that don't get cut. Like a Hindu ceremony, a Jewish ceremony, there are things that you could never take away from that ceremony because there is a lineage to it. There's a
mm,
history. There's a rhyme and a reason why you're taking those 7 steps around a fireplace.
mm,
We as a Western culture are so quick to get instant things and wanting ceremony to be short and sweet. And I think there are couples who value tradition more than ever or don't wanna have the wedding that their friends had where it was, this big ordeal, and they wanna do the exact opposite. They're thinking more intentionally of wanting to do a destination with 30 people in,
mm,
Puglia and have a great time, and it really being centered and about them versus hosting an event for everybody else, which
mm.
is kind of what happens most of the time. You're hosting the event for 250 people and you forgot about the 2 people in the room who it's about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excuse me.
One of my favorite weddings we ever photographed, I would say there was maybe 30 people. It was a Philly wedding, and they just told all their guests to show up at this yogurt spot. This was like near Graduate Hospital area. and they got married in the yogurt shop. And they didn't know that was where the ceremony was going to be. They just showed up, and then they had a bus that there was like maybe four different spots, and they went to different spots in the city that mattered to them, and every stop was new and different and a surprise, and it was just gloriously whimsical wedding, and we
Yeah.
were on an adventure, and like I'll never forget it. And that was probably 12 years ago,
Yeah.
you know?
And I say to my staff sometimes when we have meetings or like our end of the year kind of regroup is besides our cultural events that we do that are meaningful and that we all shed tears for and we love, sometimes our favorite weddings are, and I don't like to say like we classify things, but like our nerdier clients. Like we've done 2 May the 4th weddings. They embrace it. And I am a
Yeah.
closet Star Wars girl. Like I grew up with Star Wars. My family speaks like Yoda in their voices. Like
Nice.
I love it. You should
Yeah.
have seen my picture at Disney when I met Chewie. I searched for him and I look like a child standing next to Chewbacca. Best day of my life.
Yeah.
Um, but they're not afraid to be who they are. They're not afraid to show up
Right.
and be silly or in the norm of what we're seeing in our eyes, to be
Yeah.
silly or anything else. They're just being themselves.
Right.
Where I feel like a lot of couples are not doing that. They're not they're trying to show who they wanna be on Instagram, and
Yeah.
that performative thing. They're making themselves an actor of what they're trying to portray that day versus really looking at who they are on the inside.
Yeah.
And there are couples that we talked to afterwards who were like, "I don't even know why we did this. Like, why? Because
Because
you were just
yeah, the force is strong,
supposed to."
right? Like
Right. The force is
what
strong.
you
Yeah.
see online, it's just I think it's just such a has such a power in everything in our industry, and I think it's so easy to discount that and not and just think that you're like operating in your own will, you know?
Yeah.
Like I just yeah, it's an interesting topic. I feel like we could
Yeah,
keep diving down there.
yeah. There was a we're in some Facebook groups and this bride said that her wedding was in like 4 weeks and she's looking for something to add. And like what has people seen that they liked? Like she saw like the cannoli guy and this and that. And I responded as a planner that was just like, what is important to you as a couple? What represents you as a couple? Do you like going for ice cream? Add an ice cream sundae bar.
Mm,
Do you like reading? Do a custom bookmark. Get it leather bound and maybe an engraver. Like something, it was just more like reflective of looking at yourself versus just adding something to the list. We
right.
don't need to add something to that list. From that comment, I've gotten 4 brides
Wow.
because they were like, that's what we were looking for. Somebody who was grounded and gets it, that isn't trying to shove random vendors down our throat. My June 6th couple yesterday was like, "We want our wedding to be fun. What can we add?" I'm like, "What do you like to do?
Mm,
We don't need to add anything. The day's already set. It's beautiful. We have amazing food. But what do you like to do? You know, what do you like to do together? How can we add it?" And then we found out that they like going for ice cream. So we're looking for some type of ice cream vendor to
nice.
incorporate in the day. So it is tied to who they are because she's like, "Oh, everybody knows we love ice cream. We stop all the time." And I was like, "Perfect. Let's do something like that versus, adding a live tattooer because it's on trend or will make your wedding go viral." I'm sorry. Just totally grosses me out. Health codes, like, oh, each their own, but it's
Yeah,
just
you
something.
you did mention earlier that you feel like couples seem to be a little bit more discerning. And would it be safe to say that like Gen Z feels different to you in that way in general?
I think so. Um I feel like they're, like, embracing nostalgia, which is so weird to say because again, I don't feel old,
Right.
um, but the other day we had a call with a bride, and she was very much Gen Z, and she's like, "Yeah, we're, like, really trying to bring back, like, this '90s summer vibe," and I was just like, "I love it," but then I'm sitting there like, And she's like, "Yeah, like the nostalgia behind it." And I was like, "Well, I wasn't that old in the 90s, but okay." And she's like, "We're just trying to get back down to what matters. And it's not about everybody else, it's about us. And we want it to feel like us.
Mm,
We're going to host the wedding in our backyard by ourselves. How does that translate to these people? Because we don't want it to feel like it's a production at the end of the day." And sometimes weddings feel like productions. Granted, luxury weddings, when you have all the money in the world, it can exactly feel exactly how you want it. It
yeah.
still can be a production, but that could be the exact way that you would host your guests in any other way, fashion. So I do think I think they're, I feel like they're trying to step away from what's performative in that sense, where they
Yeah.
really want it to be about them and intimate. And a lot of them aren't sharing their wedding photos, which is also interesting. A lot of
Mm,
people aren't posting. They're like holding them tight and then they'll release them later.
mm,
And some celebrities have done that too.
yeah.
They've gotten married and nobody's known and their photos come out a year later and it's important to them.
Yeah.
Do what you want. It's your day.
Right.
I'm just here to make sure it looks nice, your team's great, and you can be present and not feel like you're being pulled in a billion different directions. And you eat.
Yeah. Yeah. Please. Yeah. No, that I think we're pretty well aligned there. And I feel like Gen Z is different. And it's funny you mentioned the 90s. It's like, because my kids are 18 and like
Okay.
we talk about the 1900s and the way things were done. Like,
Yeah.
they're like, you were born in the 1900s?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it's funny to think about. But I love that because I think long term, they're going to get a lot more value out of those takeaways of photo and video because it is,
Mhm.
you know, just a little bit more real. Yeah, I'm excited for this new generation for sure.
Yeah.
And
I feel like there is that shift. I mean, my kids are 7 and 5, so we're not there, but I did have a 1900s conversation with my oldest the other day. She was like, "You were born," and I was like, "No, I was born in the '80s. Thank you very much."
very different.
Um, and it's very different. But she, as much as she likes, like, being on a pad, she still wants to do stuff. Like, and I feel like there's a shift there. Like, my brother is younger than me, and he's, I don't know, I don't follow, like, the gens. Um But he never wanted to be, like, present or do things. He was, like, on a computer playing games, doing this, and that, and he just got married this past weekend, and it was beautiful, but it was also very intimate because his fiancée didn't want a big to-do. She's a police officer, he's a firefighter, um, and they could be very large weddings if you know
Yep.
police officers or firefighters, and you bring them both together sometimes. It was, like, 80 people, and it was intimate, and it was exactly them, and no frills, no fuss. And everyone was like, "Oh, did you plan this wedding?" Because we've planned some of our other family members' weddings, 3 or 4 of them, and they were bigger, and,
Mm,
and I was like, "No, we didn't have a hand." I did finishing touches, that's what Larissa described herself. I fixed the sweetheart table. I fixed the cake table. I did the finishing touches of things that
mm,
were not aesthetically pleasing to myself, and I think if they got a photo, they wouldn't have liked it. And they appreciated it, and I brought a card box because it was in my car, and I was like, "You guys got a card box?" And they're like, "No." My mom's like, "She has it in her car." My brother's like, "Why?" I was like, "The same reason I have a photo booth sitting in the back of my car."
right.
I don't know. I don't know, because 'cause I'm crazy, and
Um,
I'm just scared.
so like on that quick tangent question, what are your thoughts when a couple is in their ceremony and they are not perfectly centered? Like, have you ever tried to get their attention, or do you like? Because that's just happened to me, and eh, eh, I'm not going to be that person to go up, right? Like, but I'm just like, it's one of the hardest things for me to just sit there for whether it's 10 minutes or an hour, like just a little bit that way, and everything just symmetry would be so beautiful. Have you ever like struggled with that sort of thing?
So that's why it's really important sometimes to have a rehearsal, which I know a lot of couples are choosing not to do.
Mm,
Um Because we take photos. So we'll say, like, "Your background looks like this, you need to be centered," and we'll take a photo. So when they're crooked, we'll show them, "Do you like the way this looks?" And they're like, "No." I'm like, "Okay, so Your job is to make sure that you're stepped here,
Mhm.
and your job is to make sure, and it's usually the groom that we make sure that they understand the most
Yeah.
because he can drive it. She has a dress, she has this, but if he takes 2 steps forward when she's coming and he knows where that back post is, he's the anchor essentially.
Right.
Because we can't always rely on the officiant or the person marrying them because a lot more couples are choosing to do, especially in Pennsylvania, like self-uniting or they just have a friend and sometimes they're not able to come. So we do that. We also mark things too. Um,
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
we depending on where we are, but like outside if we're able to, like we get golf tees and we'll stick them in the ground and that's where they need to position themselves and then they just step on it when they get there and then we'll remove them. That's like the easiest thing for grass.
Nice.
So they're centered. Um, and we've used other things, rocks in certain areas, especially bridal party, but I feel like a lot more like sitting or don't have a bridal party, but we'd like anchor them with like, here's your stone. You can't step past this stone or the T. So everything is symmetrical. I'm also have been known to be like the planner in the background, like waving my hands till I get it. And I'm like, and then they do it. Or I don't want to say like I threaten, but I usually like very cordially say, if you don't move out of the way when they do their first kiss, there will be blood.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they just stand there awkwardly, like the officiant. Most of them are good. Or I had a groom or a groom's brother did it like 3 months ago. And he was like, I pronounce you, you can kiss your bride. He stood there and he goes, oh shit. And he like ran off. So I was just
That's
like,
great.
because I was like,
Yeah.
"Ew." But we always try to make it, like I said, easy for you guys. So if
Yeah.
we know what the arbor or arch looks like, how do we make sure that it is symmetrical and it looks good in photos? That's kind of like where, and again, where like we want things to be better, but like me as the photographer, I'm always like, oh, I don't like the way this looks, or like we'll shimmy
Yeah.
things to make it work. Um, because I just don't like it. And then I'll take a
Yeah.
picture and I'll be like, I don't like it. And it's on my iPhone. God, they're gonna have a
Yeah.
better camera than this. It's gonna be crap.
Yeah, yeah, that is one thing that I've noticed about a lot of photographers. Videographers can struggle too with this. Is just kind of like composition in general, but like noticing those little things. Like the background is off a little bit. So if you bring your camera down, it puts them nicely in this, archway, which just feels really good versus having intersecting lines that are like coming right to their eye in the background or something. Like little things
Right.
like that, I am super aware of. And I see it in a lot of photographs specifically where they're just kind of like, there's not as much intention. It's more of just like pointing and shooting,
Right.
and because I'm on a tangent here, but because of the trend of out of focus, bad composition, and all that stuff is like I think it's kind of created this new style of like caring less about those sorts of things, which in my opinion, in some ways is using these devices to make photographs and moments more interesting because it's not as interesting versus capturing a great moment with good composition that allows you to see and experience what's happening versus being distracted by like those devices. Does that make sense?
No, it does. I have a question for you.
Yeah,
Did you learn how to do photography on film?
I did. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
So I feel like, and I say this and I probably will offend photographers. I'm sorry. I feel like photographers who are classically trained on film are better photographers
Mm,
because they know how to read the space and the composition because there is no redo. You have that one shot to capture it.
yeah,
And the photographers that are classically trained on film are incredible. You
yeah,
can learn film, that's great, but those who truly went to school or learn the craft, develop their own film, see those details as being important,
mm,
where in this digital instantaneous world, you can make something that isn't right look creative. You can crop it, you can shift it, you can turn it. You
yeah.
couldn't do that on film. Like,
Right.
so it's a different way of thinking, but I feel like we see the more creative and thought-provoking photographers be the ones who first did film, and they are usually the
Yeah.
ones who take the better photos
Yeah.
and portraits and those things versus, again, I don't wanna say hobbyists, but these newer photographers who anybody could take a pretty picture with a digital camera and a DSLR now. I mean,
Yeah.
they make it very easy
Mm.
to just point and shoot and do it. There's not what you learned on film, having the right composition, knowing your background and foreground, and knowing how to do that. So,
Yeah.
it's always interesting when I talk to photographers and hear those things about, like, lines and this and that. I know that you probably learned how to shoot on film because
Yeah.
nobody else would have brought any of that to anyone's attention
Yeah.
because they don't know
Yeah.
what they
And
don't know.
and that's what I see first usually
Yeah,
is missed opportunities with just subtle shifts. And I think the beauty of learning film when film is the only option is it's a slower process. And if you
yep,
have 24 exposures or 36 exposures on a camera, like you're gonna use them wisely versus digital. It's just like just fire
yeah.
off and eventually want to look good. But yeah,
It's more intentional,
yeah, yeah.
and that's what the day should be about. I mean, I laugh because I'm like, I remember when sneak peeks used to be like 15 or 20 photos max. Got a sneak peek for one of our October couples, and it was 11,000 photos or 1,100 photos, and I was like, "This is an album." I
That's
mean,
a
thank you
yeah.
so much, but, like,
Nope.
what and then I'm, like, sitting there looking, and I'm like, "So you" and then me as, like, the old photographer, I'm like, "You shot 1,100 photos, gave us it. You probably shot more than that because you edited out some other photos. This isn't the whole album. This is only a sneak peek." And then I'm like, "And you charged X for your well, now you're undercharging yourself, girlfriend, because like, if you do your clicks per minute and blah, blah, blah." I'm like,
Mm,
"Okay, no wonder you took X amount of weddings last year because it's just
yeah.
there's no business behind it. It's just for
Yeah.
fun,
Yeah. That's
and
stuff
it's
that
easy."
people yeah. I think vendors typically learn if they're doing it long enough, they learn that lesson and they adjust.
Yeah,
Um, and then some take that too seriously, and
yeah.
they go really, and they're like, I
The deep
like,
end with it? Yeah,
yeah, they'll be like, if I'm giving you, a day and a half of my life, I can't show up for less than $20,000. Like I am worth more than everyone else because I'm,
yeah,
X amount, whatever. Um, that's where I sometimes like have mixed feelings about like charging what you're worth, but also not extorting for the sake of extortion, because I think there is an interesting thing that happens where like because a planner has a lot of power in those situations. And if you're a planner that takes a cut off the top and doesn't tell the couple, that's one thing. They can, do whatever they want. But like, I think there could be conversations of like, oh, you're charging 10 for this? Like you probably charge 15. I'm like, that's a I just it just feels a little bit, like just because they have the money or they could stretch their budget, like is that the right thing to do just to get more money
right.
for the sake of it?
Yeah, and I mean, we lead into conversations with one of any of our vendors that we talk to that they have a range. You know, they're looking for a photographer that's between like 12 and $16,000.
Mm,
Quote what you would for any wedding, knowing this is what it is.
mm,
Hmm. We've seen photographers quote over that amount.
mm,
We've seen photographers quote way under. Now, if we're looking at 5 photographers and 2 of them are quoting way less, I probably will say, you're not at their minimum of what their budget was. Are you just trying to get the job or is this
mm.
your true package? Because I don't want a vendor who's trying to undercut anybody at the end of the day. Like,
Right.
that
Mm,
doesn't fly with me. But if that's truly where your package lies and that's how much you're seeing the day, then so be it. But it also brings up red flags for me because, again, we do a lot of cultural weddings. So if you're quoting an $8,000 wedding for a South Asian wedding for 3 days, you're either really inexperienced
yeah.
or you're just trying to get the job, and that's not the photographer for my client.
Yeah.
Um, and then there are photographers who, like you said, they're maxing out that or adding more because of their time and everything. And South Asian weddings, dude, they're long. I mean, you guys are probably working a 14, 16-hour day, which is our normal, and I'm split shifting my staff because we're probably working 24 hours,
Yeah.
between the whole weekend and everything else. We don't get much sleep, but it's interesting to see because 'cause we're planners, like, the vendor pricing and where things are
Yeah.
and how different they are, and sometimes it shocks us because we expect this one vendor who maybe we didn't work with to be X and they're lower, or, we reached out to a photographer who's I think I'll say he's on the up and up, and his pricing, I laughed, um, because I didn't know who he thought he was. I was just like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay." Last time I saw those numbers was when I was talking to Will Reed, and he's in Canada, and he is a luxury photographer, and he did the cost you quoted me for
Mm.
a weekend wedding for my client. A weekend, and you're charging me 1 day. Mm,
Wow. Yeah.
it was interesting. I was
I
like,
mean,
"No."
good for them if they can get that. And that's the other thing is why it's just for me it's just such an interesting topic because I have my opinions and I think Melissa and I really just try to balance everything to where we're we're being compensated for our time and talent and experience, but we're also still allowing us to work with couples that we really can connect with and
Right.
it's so there is a balance, but it doesn't mean that's what makes sense for everyone. So I'm always a to each their own type person,
Yeah,
but I think if you're doing things that are skewing the direction of how the wedding industry is operating, that's where I think
yeah,
it's because you do get people who are inexperienced and they have good branding and they do the typical luxury branding that everyone has, and you're checking all the boxes and your Instagram's good and all that stuff, but then they show up and you're like, okay, there's a mismatch.
yeah,
Even if the couple doesn't notice, it's still to me it still matters.
yeah.
So I think it's like maybe earning that right versus just like, oh, if you're charging 10, I'm definitely going to start charging 10.
Right, which I think is a big thing I'd say in your world, in
Mm,
photography and video, I feel like a lot more vendors do that. Well, I know that X charges this, and they've been shooting the same number of years as me, so I'll should start raising my prices.
mm,
I feel like us as planners kinda see the opposite. We see more undercutting than anything. Um, Planners who are coming in who will do your wedding for $500, who will do day of coordination for 1,500.
wow. Yeah.
What? That doesn't even cover staffing
Yeah.
or anything else, and if somebody is doing your day of coordination and they're one person for your event, it's too good to be true, please don't hire them. Like, it's not
It's
functional.
dangerous to do that.
It is.
Yeah. There's a risk.
Um,
Yeah.
it's a huge risk, but I feel like I see a lot more photographers doing that, and I also see the flip side of photographers like you or more well-established photographers
Mm,
having candid conversations where they know someone new's in the industry, and they're like, "Yeah, we heard that they're charging X. How is that even possible?" And
yeah.
aesthetically, their Instagram is impeccable and,
Yeah.
they like
Yeah. I mean, even like the clicks within our local industry, because there are clicks, right? Like we have like core vendors that will stick together and just always feed each other, which is great. And I think that those are relationships that we all build in our own ways. But yeah, there's no wrong way to go about it. And when we started on Craigslist, like to date myself. For those kids who don't know, don't even look it up. It's not worth it. But like $650 for the first wedding we ever did, you know. But we had one camera and one lens, and we had to borrow a camera from someone, and we just
right.
worked our asses off trying to figure it out. And no one in the industry at that time was open about anything. It was a very
Yeah,
secretive
was.
experience.
They gatekeeped a lot.
J-
Yeah.
Absolute. Or they would like. I remember there was a photographer I recommended, and I'll probably share this story like 100 times over the podcast that we do. But like I reached out. I'm like, your work is amazing. Like they were easily the like main photographer in the area that like stood out as far as quality and ability. And I was like, we're new to the industry. We're just trying to make new friends, make connections. I'm like, we'd love to hang out, maybe grab coffee or whatever. And they were like, yeah, I charge $250 an hour to hang out. And I'm like, nope, I'm good. I'm like, Melissa, we're going to figure this out. And
Yeah.
yeah, it took us a while to get it figured out and figure out who we were. but that's something that happened like 17 years ago, and I'll never forget it. And that's also changed how I treat new people as well, because there are no secrets, and
Right.
thankfully the industry is a lot more open now. And I
Yeah.
think there are a ton of incredibly wonderful, generous people. And that's the other thing about this industry that I love is I love the vendors. You
Right.
know, every once in a while, you get a bad egg, but that's overshadowed by how wonderful most people are.
100%.
And that's why I like the idea of creating community and spaces for vendors to be able to shine on that side of things, versus feeling like you have to show up with a mask or fit a certain aesthetic and act a certain way. Because I think
Yeah.
that's where there is some, damage happening a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't even know how long we've been going. Let me see. Either way, like to kind of like slowly come bring ourselves to the end, because excuse me, there were definitely some questions I didn't get to, but I
Yeah.
kind of want to reconnect to the community side a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, in your opinion, and I'm not familiar with like how much of the networking side of things you're involved in, but what do you think is missing from traditional networking or industry spaces right now?
I've been involved in networking, um, in different things. I avoided one specific group for a reason, but we're getting back into it in 2026. For me, I always feel like networking in general, whether it's wedding industry or corporate or anything
Mm,
else, because I've attended plenty, depth and generosity, I feel are the things that I always feel like are lacking. Um, I feel like we always reward the visibility and highlight specific things instead of the true collaboration. That's something that I always kind of get upset about is, oh, we post all these photos of this planner who planned the wedding, but they're not tagging that team who actually produced it. Like, you came up with a visual concept, but you didn't stay up till 2 a.m. rigging lighting and AV. You didn't hang drapes. It's your team, and be proud of that team who did that because they deserve that recognition. I think honest conversations, the good, bad, and ugly and fear of it needed to be a little bit more raw.
mm,
I feel like the event industry as a whole sugarcoats it a lot.
yeah,
It's a great industry to get into. It's not for the lighthearted. Um,
yeah,
and you are like me, you came from where things were gate kept and you didn't
mm,
get answers and people turned their noses and didn't want to help you and you kind of had to pave your own way, but you will never treat an employee that way. You will never do this or that because that's how we feel.
yeah,
Um, that's why I take interns. Some people don't take interns. I got my career started in event planning as an intern,
mm,
and I will always give back to somebody who wants to learn and see the industry, but I do forewarn them, it is not what you see in magazines. It is real, raw, grit, dirt, crying. You're gonna cry, you're gonna laugh. It's like that. And I think learning from one another, different groups, I feel like sometimes in the wedding industry, we don't have roundtable conversations where it's truly all vendors. It's videographers and photographers, it's planners and designers, it's florists only. When we need to cross pollinate because that's how we're going to be better with everything and for our
yeah,
couples to show up and understand how these things operate. I worked with a florist like 3 times on a wedding. I'm not a florist. I will never do it again. I love florists. I love
yeah,
florals, but that is a stress that I did not need in my life. And I planned weddings. Like, it was just completely
mm,
different. But seeing that perspective, I've gained so much more appreciation for what they do and letting their talent shine. Like, we're not a planner who's gonna be like, "This is a centerpiece I want." Like, "This is the inspiration. Roll with it, rock with it, knock it out, put your twist on it." We never just wanna duplicate something, and I feel like we don't get enough conversations that are well-rounded
yeah,
in certain things
yeah,
and topics in general.
yeah.
I feel like they're all the same, just title changed.
Yeah, that's the one thing I feel like education has been could be better, and it just seems like a lot. a lot of the same people are speaking at everything, and it's not, and it which is fine, and they have their message. But I think a lot of the education in general is too generalized, and it's too like feel good and like I'm great because I am great and I did this, and you can too, and I'm, I've had so many great discussions with local vendors of like, can we get into the nitty gritty? Like, how do we, like, how many
Right.
vendors actually know how to run an actual business?
Which is
I mean,
which is funny because um I'm friends with the person who runs Wedding MBA. Like, we're
mm,
communicating, we talk to each other, and I said to her the one year, "Why aren't we having more like, raw conversations around wedding planning?" And, like, gave her very, like, specific topics of things that we see in the industry, and her reaction and things to me were, "We don't wanna scare people away, or we don't want to lose business or, have people worry about X, Y, and Z," and I'm like, but I feel like that's what people wanna hear. They wanna
yeah,
know what's ticking and how to do this. It's not all feel good and rainbows and butterflies at the end of the day, but there's a fear if you're too real, what's gonna happen?
right,
What's gonna be that setback?
right,
We also did, like, with our vendor misalignment conversation, we did a speaking engagement, prep for an event that we wanted to speak at, and we got an amazing email back from the person who's running the conference that it was too raw and too real.
crazy. On
But
one
it's
hand,
real life.
right,
And I know that my experience with that misalignment conversation didn't happen to just me that day.
yeah,
There was a whole group of girls that was there that day, and I know there's a group of girls in another area or other vendors who have experienced the same thing,
mm,
and how do we grow and change from it, and how do we make a shift to be better
yeah,
and not accept what has happened, and to hold people accountable and to change those things because it's not gonna happen unless we let it.
yeah,
Like,
I,
the tide is just gonna keep rolling over everybody unless we
yeah,
decide to do something about it.
yeah.
It's too raw.
Yeah, you and I are definitely very aligned with all this, and I just that's why with our little wedding group, it is about just that, and then purposefully ignoring the other stuff, and even to just be able to walk into a room and feel like you can just be yourself, and you don't have to look a certain way or whatever, and whoever's hosting it kind of like creating that energy of
Mhm.
warmth and acceptance and also being vulnerable. Um, I think that just goes such a long way, and I think that's what's been missing and something that we do want to bring back because every private conversation I have with vendors, no matter who they all want the same thing, but
Yeah,
publicly no one is sharing about it, and I think there is a almost a fear of being afraid to be real and authentic but that's what makes our industry so complicated because it's relationship driven and
right,
people are afraid of upsetting people because they don't want to lose opportunities and then some people don't realize that so many people aren't super thrilled with the way that they operate but that they'll
right,
never know because they need to pay the bills and they're going to
right,
pretend that they're amazing and I don't know how to fix that.
right, and, like, that's where I always go back to my and my staff laughs at me, my 10,000 weddings a year in Philadelphia, I want 1% of that. Like,
Mm,
I feel like vendors need to switch their mindset. If they lose a relationship with one planner, they could be opening the door for another planner who could bring them the same business or maybe more,
yeah.
or bring in another relationship. Like, I feel like there are those cliques in Philadelphia too, where like they only work with each other, they only do this, this, and that. And it's like these teams, and that's fantastic. But
Right.
I've also been in that position of a clique in different regions when I was in New Jersey and in Berks County. And we lost a photographer once. He got in a car accident, he died. Then what do you do?
Mm,
Like, you've pigeonholed yourself so much to this one photographer, and you became known as this clique that didn't wanna work with other people or didn't, ever extend an arm, that it was truly debilitating for them once, a bad thing occurrence happened.
mm,
Because other photographers didn't want to work with them because of how their attitude was or how they
Yeah.
had that relationship. So, being open and accepting of everything and vendors and even just hosting a conversation like you brought up earlier, just $200 an hour. Planners do the same thing. Planners also don't play nice with each other. There are very few planners who communicate and talk to each other.
Yeah.
They're very much singular in their own little ways, and
Yeah.
that's fine, but sometimes we need the community too, and we don't get it. Our community is built usually around the other vendors
Right.
'cause we just don't, and I don't know why we don't play nice with each other. Again, there's 10,000
Yeah.
weddings in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I'm not your style, you're not mine. Like, it's not competitive, and I feel like that's what drives everybody is this, like, there's a sparseness to it.
Yeah.
Like,
Like a
not every client.
scarcity mindset.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, we're not gonna be on the same page, and I'm happy I recommend other planners. Sometimes I'm just like, "You're not the right fit for me," and I'll send somebody else's their name. I'll check with them before because I never wanna send any client to a vendor who doesn't have the date
Yeah.
or availability, but I'll do it, and sometimes I think that's just the bigger thing to do. Some
Yeah.
people don't. Some people just say we're not a good fit, and,
Yeah.
they don't have a recommendation because they don't know anybody or they
Yeah.
don't wanna share.
Right. They'd rather no one get it if they're not
Right,
getting it themselves.
right?
Mm.
It's strange to think about, but we are aligned on that, like you said.
Yeah.
It's just
And when you do have vendors that are collaborative and inclusive and just open in community, I think we have so much to learn from each other, and it's too easy to just try to look at the selected few that seem to be the educators or thought leaders
right.
and default to them as if they have the answers when the thing that took me the longest to learn, because I'm an avid nonfiction reader, um, and I always like to say I like rewired my brain in the way that I think about everything by just
Mm,
reading voraciously for like 10 years. It is that not like just because something works for one person doesn't mean it works for another. It could be as inspirational as hell, but there's no guarantee of any of that. So hearing diverse voices and approaches, I think, is so important because a lot of what we do is throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks, right? I threw in the first curse of the podcast. There you go.
I feel like
But
I said, like, shitty or something
oh,
before,
okay,
but
well,
we'll give you that, we'll
then
give
we're
you that.
even.
That's right,
But
you're right.
and that's why I am so excited to experiment to experiment with gatherings where we can pull people together and just there's no hierarchy. We're just here to
Right,
talk amongst each other and be open and have dialogue and
yeah,
put together diverse groups as far as vendor categories, um, or diverse in other ways.
yeah,
But then on the opposite of that, also bringing together like a room of just planners, and
right,
you just have a round table, and maybe we're just all, you guys are just doing coloring books and just like we just give you random topics and just, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to look a certain way. I like
yeah.
the idea of adding whimsy into the stuff that we do, but um, there's also no spaces like when do bakers, where's their community to get together or employees of wedding companies? I think
Right, and I feel like that's what you were saying, like, we hit the big notes, but we don't encompass everybody, and
right.
we're not speaking to certain industries, certain cultures. I mean, I'm big into diversity and inclusion. We're getting ready to hire somebody who's a cultural person for our team in a
Mm,
specific role, but there are a lot of people who are afraid of that. I pulled out of a large event earlier this year because there was a misalignment with how I was representing the day and how I wanted to do things, and I wanted to show culture, and it
yeah,
wasn't on brand, was what I was told,
yeah,
and that hurts, but it doesn't because I feel like I'm a white person. I'll say it, I'm Italian and Hispanic, I look very white. I grew up very middle class. Yes, I do have certain things that other people don't have, but I'm not misguided by that.
mm,
but I will never silence anybody else's voice. And I feel like we don't get enough culture conversation. We don't get enough inclusion on ADA or anything else. It's very much driven by standards that are also non-coexistent that somebody just kinda made up or they read somewhere. So,
Yeah.
again, kinda getting back to that rawness and open conversations need to happen because there are a lot of things sometimes I see and I'm like, "That is not we shouldn't be doing that. Why? Why did we do that? Why did we make that decision?" Um, and we don't know what you don't know, and I get that, but
Yeah.
if you knew, you wouldn't have done that.
Right.
Um, but we don't have those conversations for bakers
Yeah. And
or
and
DJs sometimes. I mean, I can go on about DJs, but I
yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like we get DJs, but there are DJ.
I just want to do fake commercials. I'm be like, all right, and then I'm just gonna read from a script that I write of just some absurd product or service that makes no sense, but it's for the wedding industry.
Like, you hear them on, like, those podcasts where they just have to, like they're sponsored. You ever, like, hear, like, some podcasts, they're, like, "Sponsored by," and it'll be like, "Frank's Hot Dogs, blah, 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 blah," and you're like, "Where did that come from?"
Right,
But
like a
it they,
super
like, have to
random,
pay for airtime, yeah.
no relevance whatsoever. Yeah. Yeah. Today's Talk of the Aisle is sponsored by Acadia Spring Water, which I think
There
is
you
the
go.
giant knockoff water brand. The best around. Can't find anybody
Right?
else like it. Sorry, you were saying, did I know someone?
I was saying that I think the DJ space, Jason Gianni, he's a DJ in New Jersey. I think
Mm,
he's SEC, SCE. He does a lot of, like, networking specifically for his industry,
mm,
um, which is great on, like, growing, but again, I'm not in that space, so I don't know if, like you said earlier, if what he does is gonna work for everybody else in your business model, but I do see that he does host some great things for, like, that industry specific, but that's one person that I know of
yeah.
in the New Jersey region. He's not even technically Philadelphia, he's Jersey,
Mm,
that does something, and then you have, like, your WIPAs, your NACE, your ILEA, Wedding MBA,
emerge.
Emerge, yeah, um, you have Engage.
Hmm.
There's a bunch of different things. It just,
Yeah.
I feel like it's like the who's who though. Like, you kinda have to figure out, like, where do you wanna dip your toe in and what makes the most
Yeah.
sense and
What and what game do you want to play?
right,
Which is to me, and that's just the way that I like think about it. Is there are ways that you have to operate at every level and every section of our industry. So it's like, are you willing to play values and sacrifice certain things or pretend things or I'll never forget the advice I was given from Planner one time, which was if you want me to refer you my high-end couples, you need to stop showing diversity. And then for Melissa and I, we were like, okay, that's it. Nope, we're good. Thanks. Like, we're just not.
I would die.
That's and that's again, but these aren't like this isn't the typical way that vendors think. I'm just really good
Right.
at finding these people. Or having people come and tell me stories. Like after almost any event that happens in like the area that's somewhat decent size, people talk to me and I have conversations. And I think some
Right,
of it's just because when I was part of WIPA on the board, like part of my job was community outreach and connecting
right,
with our membership and really just wanting to know how we could do better, and then helping implement those changes. So I think I love that side of the work and I like having candid conversations with people
right,
because I want to take how you feel about this and apply it to the community we're growing. And,
right,
you know, but the benefit that I have with what we're doing is that we're not beholden to any sort of structure or operating procedures. We can every other event that we do can be an absolute failure, but that's okay. And I'm okay with trying and making mistakes, but
right,
I just want to excuse me, I want to approach it in a way that is just authentic and real and with vulnerability and um the willingness to be a little bit more creative and try things and see if it works because
yeah,
I think there's a lot of people that tap into authenticity and they can feel it when someone is real and they're not just, pretending to be like to care about you and your family or whatever. Like it's very easy, I think, for a lot of people to feel it. Maybe some people can't pinpoint what they're noticing, but I think inauthenticity is
Yeah.
something everyone can see.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like couples do see it when it's authentic. There's fluidity to the day. There's, continuity. The team is working the same way.
Mm.
But when there is something that isn't right or off with someone or a team, it's noticeable to an extent. I mean, I see it because I'm the planner.
Yeah.
I can see when, I like to say it's like usually like my videographers and photographers. If you've never worked together, I see it on the day. Sometimes
Yeah.
you guys don't say nice. But you're all there trying to get the shot. So like I get it, but
Yeah.
it's hard. That's why we always reach out to like the photographer first to be like, who do you recommend from a video standpoint? Because we want to make sure that you're working collaboratively.
Yeah.
Because we've had days, like I said earlier, where they've been like, "Get this person away from me," and I'm like, "Oh, they use a videographer." Like, okay, then I have to go talk to that videographer and be like, "Listen, you're like, just be mindful of like where you're standing and
Mm.
spacing. You've been in some shadows, casting this, that,
Yeah.
And then they're looking at me like I have 6 heads. Like, well, why are you telling me it? Well, the photographer already said it to you, and you're not listening. So now it's
Yeah.
coming from me. And hey, who needs a diet coke? Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because like Stagger Films started out of necessity as us as M2 Photography doing weddings where we have video teams come in and just kind of try to take over and make it a production and don't allow us to give the experience we want. So Melissa and I were like,
yeah,
how do we help control that experience?
yeah,
We have to learn video. And,
yeah.
lucky enough, it kind of took off and it's become its own thing. But that's why, I always reach out to every I reach out to every photographer before a wedding and just set
Right.
expectations, open line of
Yep.
communication, and let them know like I know intimately how hard your job is and how important it is. So I want to
Right.
do my best that our team makes that easy for you to do
Yeah.
because we can
I
still
mean,
get everything we need.
yeah, and we deal with it too from like a cultural perspective when you have like a cultural videographer and a Western photographer, that day is usually like so hard.
Mm.
Um, or even vice versa sometimes when you have like a cultural photographer and video team, they're clashing with each other. They're very much work and operate very differently, but there is that level of experience, what they're doing, how they run their business, and you can see that versus just hiring somebody to shoot your day, which some couples just default to.
Mm.
He was a family friend photographer. He did nice photos. They had a nice experience. He gave us a deal, so we're gonna go with him. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, "Yep."
Best of luck. Yeah.
Right? I can't say that, but in my
Yeah.
head, I'm like, "Okay." But I know, and that's why we've, like, shifted. So then we
Yeah.
do the reach out, and sometimes it's hard to get those conversations going with certain vendors, or they don't wanna talk about it, or it's too far in advance, and
Mm.
we don't know what's happening yet. Why don't you wait till you do a timeline and then call me? So,
Yeah.
again, we try to make sure everybody has the best there's setups for success from the beginning to make the day fluid and everybody's on the same team, but sometimes it just doesn't work.
It does matter that you do that though. As a vendor, I like being set up for success and I like
Right.
knowing what I need to know,
Yeah.
especially with photo and video. Um, from from photo, it's more on, not just timeline, but also the subtleties of the different relationships involved and expectations.
Yeah.
And for video, it's can I have enough time to set up for this? Like,
Right.
which
Exactly.
I think a lot of people underestimate. And the video is absolutely technically more difficult than photo. Um, but it's also better because if you don't want to socialize that day, you can just
Right.
let the photographer do it. But yeah, so those are all the questions I had. We went a bit longer than expected, and I feel like we could keep talking. Melissa would have ended this 30 minutes ago. Um, because like she's really good at that. I'm just like, let's just keep going. But yeah, I really appreciate chatting with you, and I feel like maybe down the line another conversation would be nice to have, kind of go some other
Absolutely.
directions. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I appreciate your time very much.
Yes, it was a great chat. I think it definitely needed to be had within the community, and I'm looking forward to seeing how everything gets edited and put together. And
We're gonna cut out the battery that died that you guys aren't seeing. I might keep the commercial that I ad-libbed. We'll see.
I, I would
But
like to say I could do a commercial, but we'd probably get sued because I was having Starbucks this morning, so can't do
they don't need me. You're good.
that.
Yeah. All right. Well, it was a
Yeah,
pleasure. Have a great day.
you too.
All right. Take
Tell
care.
Melissa I missed her.
I will. See ya.
See ya. Bye bye.